Well, just by a show of hands in here, who is about to be headed out for a road trip for spring break? Like two people. Wow, just two people. Is anybody going to get on a plane tomorrow because you're not going to do the whole road trip thing? Nobody. Kind of, maybe? How do you kind of maybe get on a plane? No, it's totally fine. I got you. Anyways, I'm excited. Whatever your plans are for spring break, I'm excited for it. And I'm excited to be here today. My name is Jeremy, and I'm the service programming director here at North Point. And all that means is I have the privilege of partnering with a lot of teams here at North Point that create the Sunday morning experience every single week. And I've been so pumped for this series for a while. And the reason is because for me personally, I absolutely love road trips. I'm one of those people that I would much rather take a road trip than get on a plane. That's totally who I am. And this wasn't always the case, but about a couple years ago, my wife Ashley and I got married about 3 years ago. And when we got married, we were kind of trying to figure out whether or not road tripping was going to be something that we did in our life. And so we gave it a go. And we took our first road trip to Gulf Shores, Alabama. This is us on the beach at Gulf Shores, and it was fantastic. It was a great time. And we had one incident that happened on the way there to Gulf Shores. And this was our first test to see if road tripping was going to be our thing. And what happened was we left late at night, and we were going to get there early in the morning so we could take advantage of another day there at the beach. And we left late at night, and we were on our way, and I took the first leg of the trip. And we started going, we got out of Texas into Louisiana, and it was about the time that you hit this stretch of I-10 right here. And I see some of you nodding like, yeah, you've been on that stretch of I-10. And this is the stretch where you're driving and you get this do, 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 right? Like over and over again, like for like an hour, right? And so we're about to hit this stretch. We end up switching places and Ashley takes over. And I remember getting a little nap. I slept for about 30 or 45 minutes. And then I woke up and I saw out of the corner of my eye, Ashley was sitting there holding the steering wheel and there's the do, do, do that's happening. And I see her like shaking and I just see her head doing this. And I lost my mind. Like I out of the corner of my eye, I could see that like she had like one eye open, and I totally lost it. And all of my controlling husband things totally took over in this moment. And you could say that she's never driven ever again on our road trips. Like she just doesn't ever get to drive on our road trips again. But I totally took over. And the reason why I did that is because I knew we were on this road, this stretch of highway, and all I could think about was we're just gonna like veer off, and then these guys are waiting for us at the bottom. Like they're just sitting there waiting for us. That's all I could think about. But even with that, like we have grown to love road trips so much. And one of my favorite parts is downloading a bunch of books on Audible and listening to the books throughout the road trip. So I'll download like a couple books, biographies or leadership books or things like that. And I love that stuff. And you might be thinking, well, okay, how does Ashley deal with me? How does Ashley deal with that? And the way she does is we got her a pair of these right here. So she's got her pair of AirPods. She puts them in. She listens to her own things. And what's funny is I actually got my own pair of AirPods as well. And so now we go on our road trips, and we both sit in the car in complete silence, listening to our AirPods and listening to our own things, not talking for hours on end. And I honestly think like 3 years in, like we have marriage figured out. Like we got it all taken care of. We know exactly what we're doing. But my most favorite thing that I've done with road tripping is I really wanted to like soup out our car because I thought, man, like those people with the cars and the rails on the top and like they do all this cool stuff. And so for my birthday last year, I got some rails to put on my car. And I was like, man, we're going to put coolers on this. We're going to put our dogs on top of a car. Like, we're going to do so much with these rails. And we have yet to do a single thing with them. Like, I'll just walk out and look at them and be like, man, I'm so adventurous. Like, I'm crazy. Like, look at the rails on top of my car. Like, that's what I'll do all the time. But our most recent road trip was going to San Francisco. And this was a bit of a step up for us because it was a 30-hour drive. And the reason we were doing this is because we were driving my brother out there. He just moved there, and we were going to fly back. And so we were driving him out there to keep him company on the drive. And it was an awesome road trip. We stopped in the Grand Canyon on the way there. This was all three of us hanging out. And I would say not my favorite, but my most memorable part of the road trip was probably about 3 hours in. Jamie is sleeping in the seat next to me. Ashley's behind me in the back, and she taps me on the shoulder, and she says, hey, I just want to let you know I didn't bring my driver's license. And so I can't drive at all on this trip. And I was like, that's totally fine. You're not allowed to drive anyways, so that's totally fine. But yeah, so that's me. That's why I love road trips. And I think the thing I love most is I just love discovering new places. I love seeing something new with my eyes for the very first time. I remember when we were going from Denver into the mountains in Colorado. I'm originally from Colorado, and Ashley is born and raised Austin, Texas. And I told her, like, we're going to go see the mountains for the first time. You're going to love it. And she goes, yeah. I've seen the hill country. Like, I've seen what it looks like. I've been there, done that. And I told her it's different. And so we go over this highway, go over this hill, and she sees the mountains in the distance for the first time, the snow-capped peaks, and her eyes just get so wide. And I remember looking at her, just being so excited that she was seeing it for the first time and experiencing this for the very first time, and it was awesome. And I love going from place to place and watching things change. I took this video on our way to San Francisco, and this was in New Mexico, and then we went to Arizona. And of course, I would never take this while I was driving. I would never do that, absolutely no. But this was in California, and here's my brother. He's sleeping right there. But I love seeing the landscape change as we go. I love watching the climate change as we go. And I love getting to the place that you're trying to get to. And then you drive up or you arrive, or if you're flying and you're doing that thing, you do that as well. And you see it with your eyes for the first time. And you kind of say to yourself, this is so much better than the pictures. The pictures just didn't do it justice. I love those moments. And that's really the whole reason. The reason I share all of that, that's the whole reason we are in this series called Road Trip, a journey through the life of Jesus. We want to go where Jesus went. We want to go where he stood. We want to put ourselves in the shoes of the people who listened to Jesus in the first century. And ultimately, we want to discover things for the first time about Jesus, new things that we didn't know before, and discover a relationship with him in a way that we haven't ever done before. And last week, Buck kicked us off in part 1, and he ended with a big idea that Jesus came to introduce something brand new. Came to introduce something brand new, a new way of thinking, an upside-down way of thinking into the world. And to fully appreciate and fully understand this brand new that Jesus brought into the world, I think we first fully need to understand the old that he came to replace. And the old was this. It was the old covenant. It was an agreement between God and the nation of Israel. And the agreement was summed up in all of these commands. In fact, 613 commands, not just a couple, but 613 commands. And you might have heard of the first 10, literally called the 10 Commandments. And at the core of the Old Covenant was the temple, or the temple model. In other words, the way in which you get to God, the way in which you get to have a relationship with God is through the temple, is through the rituals, the practices, the commands of the Old Covenant, and through the priests of the temple. This was the Old Covenant. And this is what Jesus came to replace with the new. But what's important to understand as we put ourselves in the shoes of people in the first century is there was no perception of old or new. There was just current. There just what was for them, what they were familiar with. And so Jesus shows up on the scene. He comes to the Jordan River, like we saw last week. And John sees him coming from a long way off. John is baptizing people, and he sees Jesus coming towards him. And he says this, he says, "Look, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world." And I would imagine people hearing this go, the Lamb of God, like, oh, what does that mean? And takes away the sin of the world? How does one person atone for another person's sin? But this was the brand new that Jesus was coming to introduce. It was a brand new covenant. It was a brand new covenant. It was no longer based on what we do, but on what he did for us. It was a brand new command, a command that summed all the other commands up in one. It said, love your neighbor as yourself. And it was a brand new movement. No longer between just God and the nation of Israel, but to all people, all nations, to the ends of the earth. This was the brand new that Jesus came to introduce. But I think on our road trip, at this point, we have to stop and we have to pause. Because what's important to remember is that we're in the shoes of people in the first century. And I would imagine when they hear this, they're going, anybody can make a radical statement, John. Anybody can say something like that. Where's the substance behind it? How do we know it's true? Where's the proof? It's like if I said, hey, I can dunk. All of you in here are going, how does that 5'5" little body get up there and dunk? I can't dunk, in case you're wondering. I can't dunk. But there's no proof. You have to put substance behind this big statement. And where we go next in the road trip, we begin to see Jesus' life illustrate this brand new way of thinking, this brand new covenant that he was here to completely flip the world upside down and show us. And I think it's a brand new covenant, a brand new way of thinking that when applied and taken to heart in your life can flip your world upside down. And perhaps you can discover something new that God has for you in your life and your relationship with him. And so we pick up the story right where we left off. Jesus is baptized by John the Baptist, and then the story takes a right turn. And Matthew, one of Jesus' disciples, is writing this for us, and here's what he says. He says, "Then Jesus was led by the Spirit, by God, into the wilderness." And what we know historically and based on geography is the wilderness was most likely this place right here, the Judean desert. It's just north of Jerusalem. So Jesus is led into the wilderness. But before we read past this too quickly, we can miss one important thing, and that is that Matthew used this word right here called wilderness. And this word is significant because everybody who knew the stories that were of the Old Covenant knew that thousands of years ago, there was a period of time where the nation of Israel wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, and that's where the Old Covenant was introduced to them, or the Old Covenant was established. And so Jesus was kind of introducing this brand new right where the nation of Israel was doing it as well. It was symbolic. To which we go, okay, well, how does that happen? And Matthew tells us, he says he goes into the wilderness to be tempted, to prove something, to show something, to substantiate this big, bold claim that John made. But what I think is interesting is while we probably can't relate with temptations of being in the wilderness like Jesus did, I think we can all relate with the idea of temptation as a whole. Because at the core of temptation is an invitation to embrace self-interest. An invitation to embrace self-interest. An invitation to say yes to the things that benefit me in any given moment, in any given time. It could be something relationally. It could be a habit. Something with our marriage. Something with our career. Something with work. An invitation to embrace self-interest at any given moment or time. It might not benefit us down the road, but it benefits us at that moment, even if it hurts other people. And what I find interesting is that we generally don't feel tempted towards being selfless. We generally don't feel a pull in the direction of being selfless. I don't know if any of you have ever run into a room and said, "Hey, I have a truck. Does anybody need help moving this weekend? Because I have a truck and I want to help you use it." Those of you with trucks are laughing because you're like, I always get asked to help move, right? Or I don't think any of us run into a room and say, "Does anybody need a ride to the airport at 4 o'clock in the morning on Saturday? Because I really just want to help out with that." Like we just generally don't do that. We don't feel a pull in the direction of being selfless. But selfish, on the other hand, myself included, this is all of us, I think we all feel a pull in this direction. To wake up each day and to say to ourselves, how can my day, how can my money, my power, my influence, what I do today, how can this benefit me today? I think we all do this subconsciously or consciously. And Jesus, in this moment, being tempted in the wilderness, feels the invitation to self-interest, feels the temptation, many of which we feel every single day. But then Matthew tells us something. He tells us that Jesus was not alone. There was somebody with him. And that somebody was an enemy. Matthew tells us that he went into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil or Satan. And I realize when we say Satan or we say the devil, because of our culture and the, guy with pitchfork and scary movies, we might flinch a little bit. But what's important to understand is that Jesus took the devil seriously. And for me personally, when I look at a guy who predicted his own death and resurrection and pulled it off, I kind of lean in a little bit to what he has to say. And so when I think about the devil and what's happening here 2,000 years ago in Jesus' life, I think for the sake of our discussion today, we have to take the devil seriously. And Jesus is in the wilderness being tempted by the devil. And here's what begins to happen between them. After fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. Wow, what a profound statement, right? But this is important. Matthew includes this because of this symbolism, 40 days and 40 nights to symbolize the 40 years that Israel wandered in the wilderness. Jesus is here to contrast the old and to show us the new that he is introducing. And not only that, but Matthew includes this short little phrase, he was hungry, because he's trying to make a point that Jesus was human. See, we tend to put Jesus in another category, and rightfully so, because he's fully God and fully man at the same time. But I think oftentimes we forget the fully man part. I think when we think about Jesus' life, we forget what 40 days of not eating would actually do and what it would actually feel like. And we know scientifically this is possible, but it's probably hard for most of us in here to even fathom what that would feel like. But in this moment, Jesus hadn't eaten for 40 days and 40 nights. I would imagine he's extremely hungry. I would imagine he's extremely fatigued because he literally has no fuel for his body. And I would imagine he's extremely lonely at this period. of his life as well. And then we see what begins to happen. Satan begins to throw more temptation on top of Jesus. The tempter, the deceiver, the provoker came to him and said, if you are the Son of God, essentially he mocks him, hey, if you are who you claim to be, tell these stones to become bread. In other words, he's saying, Jesus, why do you allow yourself to succumb to human hunger? You're the Son of God, aren't you? You could snap your fingers and a basket of Olive Garden breadsticks will pop up right in front of you. Like, wouldn't that be fantastic? But Jesus replies. He knows what Satan is trying to do right now. He says, it is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. In other words, Satan, I'm not here to live on bread. I'm here to show my reliance and my dependence on my relationship with my Heavenly Father. And then Satan throws another temptation at him. Then the devil took him to the holy city, to Jerusalem, and had him stand on the highest point of the temple. And what we know is this was probably 180 feet in the air. It's a wing that jutted out at the top of the temple. And he said, if you are the Son of God, again he mocks him. He says, if you are who you claim to be, throw yourself down. Just jump. For it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and they will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. In other words, they're standing at the top of this temple, and they're looking down. And they're seeing all the people in the temple grounds. And Satan says, Jesus, just jump. I know what you're here to do. You're here to prove that you're doing something new, right? You're here to establish a kingdom or something like that. Well, just jump. Because what's going to happen is you're going to be fine. God will save you. You're going to be totally okay. And then everybody's going to see that you are the Son of God, that you are who you claim to be. They're going to see your glory and your power in this moment. Just take the shortcut. Just jump. And Jesus replies, it is written, do not put the Lord, your God, to the test. Jesus says, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to take the shortcut. And once again, I think in our temptations and our life, I think we can relate to Jesus. Because isn't it true that in our temptations that we experience each and every day, that those invitations to embrace self-interest often come in the form of a shortcut? That we want to take some sort of shortcut. Maybe it's a habit that fills a hole inside of us temporarily, but it's ultimately a shortcut and doesn't deal with actually is going on inside. Maybe it's a shortcut in our marriage, shortcut in our finances, our career. Maybe it's a shortcut in a relationship that we want to do this big grand gesture to try and do a quick fix instead of actually dealing with and mending the brokenness. We're tempted to pull shortcuts into our life. And Jesus knows this, and Jesus illustrates something in this moment that is so important that if you get one thing and you're walking out of here today, I want you to just take this one statement, and that is this, is that if you shortcut the struggle, you shortchange the breakthrough. If you shortcut the struggle, you shortchange the breakthrough. Part of life is dealing with uncomfortable situations, dealing with pain. But part of the process, if we don't shortcut, is that we learn and we grow along the way. And on the other side, there's a breakthrough. There's something that we learn. There's something God does in our life as a result of us pushing through those moments. What I find interesting is that there are shortcuts and efficiencies all over our culture. Like when you think about the fact that we used to order something online and it would take weeks to come in, and now with Amazon Prime, it's literally just 2 days. Or if you have Amazon Prime now, you pay a little extra and you get it in 2 hours. For those of you who didn't know that, you're pulling out your phone, you're downloading Amazon Prime now, right now, doing your groceries. And not only that, but Google will literally ask you on a road trip, hey, do you want to take a shortcut? Do you want to take a shortcut? And this isn't a knock on culture at all. I love the fact that I can get a Hop Dottie burger delivered to my doorstep at any time of the day. I think that's fantastic. But you see, when we take that same level of reasoning and we apply it to the struggles, the temptations, the obstacles that we experience in our life, we ultimately undermine what we could learn, what we could grow and develop into on the other side. It's no coincidence that the vast majority of people who win the lottery end up bankrupt. It's because they don't learn along the way the process of how to manage their finances, how to be wise with their finances. And Jesus knows this in this moment. He's saying, no, I'm not going to take a shortcut. And so, Satan decides to lay it all out on the table. He has one last temptation that he's going to throw at him, and here's what happens. Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in their splendor. And what we know geographically is it was most likely a view that looked something like this. Now, this is a modern-day perspective, but they're looking down into the valley where Jerusalem was, the temple, seeing the people, seeing the hills and mountains in the distance. And then Satan turns to him and says this, all of this I will give you if you will bow down and worship me. All of this. Hey, this kingdom you're coming to do, this kingdom you're coming to introduce, you can have it all if you will bow down and worship me, if you will listen to me. And in this moment, we begin to see Jesus' life illustrate the upside down, brand new kingdom that he was here to introduce. Because in this moment, they're standing at the top of this mountain, and I would imagine it's almost like Jesus is holding the earth in his hands, looking down, and Satan is saying, hey, okay, the whole Son of God thing, I'll give you that. You are the Son of God, I'll give you that. But I know what you're here to do. You're here to build a kingdom, right? You're here to do that whole new thing, right? Why don't you just do it my way? Why do you have to go through the struggle? Why do you have to go through this process? Why don't you just snap your fingers and make it happen? And he was right. Jesus was here to build a kingdom. But this wasn't the way God wanted him to do it. And this wasn't what Jesus had in mind. There was something bigger. There was something more significant happening here. There was something new brewing underneath this entire thing. And Jesus wasn't about to take a shortcut. So looking down at the earth, looking down into this valley, Jesus turns, he looks to Satan, and he says this, away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only. I'm not going to leverage my power, my influence for my benefit. I'm not going to give into the shortcut. I'm going to leverage my power, my benefit for something greater than me. Then the devil left him. And we've been saying since the beginning of this series that Jesus came to introduce something brand new. And John said this big statement, the Lamb of God who comes to take away the sin of the world. And you see, everybody expected someone. Everybody expected someone, a savior, a Messiah, somebody to come in like a knight in shining armor. But nobody expected somebody like Jesus. Why? Because Jesus wasn't here to do what was expected. He was here to flip it upside down. He was here to introduce something brand new, a brand new kingdom. He says it best like this. Later on in his ministry, he describes it like this. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served. The Son of Man did not come to give in to self-interest, to leverage power, influence for his benefit. The Son of Man came to serve and give his life, complete surrender, as a ransom for many. For who? For many, for the world. Jesus was here to establish a kingdom, not barter for one, but a kingdom in the hearts of people. Jesus was here to establish a kingdom where the king would lay down his life for his subjects. A kingdom where the first would be last and the last would be first. Where those who were least important would now be considered most important. A kingdom where power is leveraged for the powerless. A kingdom where those with authority would use it in such a way that it made an impact on those who didn't have it. A kingdom where wealth is leveraged for those in need. A kingdom where those who had extra would use it in such a way that it benefits the lives of those who don't have extra. And a kingdom where influence would be leveraged for those without a voice. Those who had a voice would use it in such a way that it impacted those who didn't. And do you know why Jesus did this? Do you know what hung in the balance for him in all of these moments that he's facing, these tempting moments, 40 days, 40 nights hungry, and then Satan throws all of this at him? Do you know what he was focused on? Do you know what he had his eyes on in these moments and so many more moments that would come his way leading up to the cross? Do you know what he was thinking about? You. He was thinking about you in each one of those moments. He was seeing your face, and he had you in mind. You were the reason he had the resilience and resolve that he did in those moments. Your value, your worth, your life, your eternity. Jesus looks at you and me and he says, you are the many that I came to give my life as a ransom for. Your identity is no longer found in what you do, but it's in what I have done for you. You were the reason. And do you know what hangs in the balance for us when we face the temptations of our life, the struggles, the obstacles, and we look at all of our power, all of our influence, all of our wealth, all of our decision-making ability? Do you know what hangs in the balance for us? Well, it's you. But not only that, it's the yous around you. It's your family. It's your loved ones. those who depend on you, those who look up to you. It's your legacy. And so let me ask you this. Is there an area of your life where you're trying to shortcut the process? Is there a category of your life where you are being tempted or pulled in the direction to embrace self-interest and shortcut the process of what God could ultimately teach you through whatever that might be? Is it your health? Is it your finances? Is it your marriage? Is it your time? Is it your relationships? Is it your relationship with your Heavenly Father? Are you being tempted to shortcut an area of your life and it's ultimately undermining what you could learn in the process? Jesus had a why in his mind. He had a why, and that was you. It was you that was helping him stay resilient and focused on what he was trying to do. In your shortcuts, do you have a why that's bigger than you? In your temptations, do you have a why that's bigger than you? A purpose, a people, a group that keeps you motivated, that keeps you going. And perhaps you need to think about giving your life for something bigger than you. And lastly, are you leveraging what you've been given for the yous around you? Are you leveraging your time, your wealth, your influence, your purpose, your decision-making ability for the benefit of those around you? Or are you leveraging it for your benefit alone? Jesus came to introduce something brand new. A new covenant, a new movement, a new command. And in doing so, he makes available a new that God has for you. But this new is on the other side of our willingness to not shortcut what's in front of us, but to stay true, to stay focused, to stay resilient, to ask God for strength to push through and experience the breakthrough that he might have. It could be a new way to approach life. It could be a new way to approach relationship. It could be a new way to see your spouse. It could be a new way to have a relationship with God. Whatever it is, whatever shortcuts, whatever temptations you face, perhaps God has a new for you on the other side. But if you shortcut the struggle, you shortchange the breakthrough. And we saw this in Jesus' life, and we see it so many more times that he stayed focused on what he was here to do. And we're going to continue to unpack more of this road trip in the life of Jesus through the coming weeks. Would you pray with me for today? Heavenly Father, we come before you. We're so thankful for these moments in Jesus' life that show us how much you care about us. And help us draw nearer to you, understand you in a new way. God, throughout our life, would you help us not lean in, not take the shortcuts when we face temptation, but would you help us push through those to stay resilient, to keep our eyes focused on something new that you have for us on the other side? Would you help us take Jesus' precedence and apply it in our life? Would you give us the strength to do that? And then, God, help us see what you have for us. We're so thankful for your love, for the example you set, the scriptures that you have saved so we can learn from what happened 2,000 years ago. And we pray all this in your name. Amen. Hope you all have a great spring break, and we'll see you next week for part 3.